My name is Clara Towson, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
I am Francisca George, and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Susan Leemans, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom. Yeah.
My name is Zainab Summers, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hey guys, my name is Sasha Vickery, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hi, my name is Lloyd Harris, and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Jan Faria, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Yes.
Take one. Well done.
Hi, my name is Jasmine Paulini, and I'm a friend of the show.
Wow, Jasmine, you got it in one time.
Ready? Play.
Hello guys, hope you are ready for another one of these, like, I don't know how to call them, pre-day shows we've been doing this past week. This time actually the United Cup action at least is like 8 hours away from us, but there's also a lot of ATP and WTA events, of course. One of them I think already starting up around now. But anyway, Vansh, we have two things from the Poland-Great Britain thing, the Poland-Great Britain quarterfinal match that happened today in the title. So maybe let's start there. And I mean, it was expected that Poland was going to win 2-0, but it actually was a lot more interesting than you'd think, that quarterfinal.
Yeah, it was. Certainly going into it, you would have liked Hurkacz's chances to beat Billy Harris, as well as, Billy has done the last 12 months or so. And yeah, that was, a close-ish match, I guess. Kind of what you would expect Hurkacz to come through in the tight moments. Just even despite him not being at the level that he was this time last year. But still, he got it done in straight sets, put Poland up 1-0, and then it was all on Swiatek to clinch it in the singles. But then Boulter put up a really good performance. And that was, some really fine tennis from her, just like redlining a lot of the times from the baseline, like really just going after her down the line backhand, doing really well in the cross-court forehand to forehand exchange as well, like just returning really aggressively, just kind of playing the kind of tennis that got her that San Diego title last year, but even better, I think. Just really, really fine effort to push the world number one. And of course, you're cracking because it took 2 minutes, 25 seconds, and already San Diego.
The most important achievement in Katie Boulter's career.
Yeah, for sure. And then nothing comes close so far. But had she won this, maybe we would have had that debate. But she almost got it done. She was up a break in the third. She had a break point even at 4-all, and Swiatek's backhand down the line clipped the line by like 2 centimeters. So
yeah, I feel like we've been like 15 hours from that match, or more or less, probably even less. But I feel like that's already kind of forgotten about. Like everybody remembers that Katie gave a fantastic fight in sets 1 and 3. But yeah, I mean, she was super close to potentially win the match. I mean, it was right there. That one shot from Iga, she had that thigh issue too. In the deciding set, of course, the pole. Second set, it actually felt like Katie couldn't keep up that crazy intensity that the first set was played at. Some very long sets that Iga has been playing this week. Muchova-Świątek, of course, was another match that like lasted almost 2 hours, despite being a seemingly easy win on paper if you just look at the scoreline. And here, of course, the opening set was just mom of 2 and almost 3 hours. So a little longer than all the matches that she played in the BHN King Cup finals. In the end, of course, Poland advances. But yeah, I think Hurkacz Harris is mostly just like, it was a very important match for Hubert just, to get a win this season. To get a win first time since the knee injury. And it's still very hard to say like where he actually is with his level. Maybe his match against Shevchenko will tell us that. But anyway, that's probably something that we're going to talk about later. And also today we have the Italy Czechia quarterfinal coming up. I've been kind of like very vocal on the channel saying that Italy is an underrated contender, that they have a great shot at the title. But this is not an easy match. Like I'm not positive they're going to pull through. You could actually make the case that in both singles they're like slightly let's say, the underdogs. And then, of course, the mixed would be their great strength, but you actually have to get to the mixed first. So, yeah, I'm not really sure about that. Czechia, of course, was in the group with Poland. And, well, basically it was so tight between these two countries as to who would make it out of the groups first.
Yeah, right now I would say I'm slightly favoring the Czech. Actually, in both the singles, to be honest. Yeah, they probably go in as slight favorites in both of them. But on paper, it's a really enticing match. Like Paulini and Mukova are two of the most watchable players on the tour. They already played at the U.S. Open, and well, I mean, it wasn't that close. But the way Paulini's been playing this week, you definitely have to go into it believing like that could be really competitive and could go either way. I still make Muhova a favorite. And then the other one is Hurkacz against Koboli. And Koboli had that really nice win over Humbert in the previous round where he saved match point and then came through that really exciting second set tie break and then carried it over into the third. But yeah, I think on paper you were kind of right to pick up their chances in terms of like going all the way again. But yeah, the Czechs, like you said, there was very little separating the Czechs and the Poles in the group stage. So I kind of going into it still slightly favoring the Czechs.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that probably Italy is a slight underdog in both singles matches. So it's really all about getting that 1 point on the board. I mean, Koboli Hurkacz is almost a 50-50 for me. And Paulini is 0-4 in the head-to-head against Muhova. Lots of these matches are like far back. Of course, Jasmine like only really started peaking last year, maybe second half of 2023. So definitely, I'm not like saying that this head-to-head is the most important thing in the world. However, U.S. Open, of course, last year 6-3, 6-3 for Carolina, not a tough match at all. Definitely, there's like a slightly more, just varied nature to Carolina's game. But we'll see. As you said, I mean, Paulini's intensity in these team competitions and this week, I was just absolutely stunning so far. So it is possible for her to suddenly start turning the head-to-head around. And of course, the country that wins this match will be going up against the United States on Saturday. And also on Saturday, we already have one match set. And let's maybe talk about that one, as Poland will be taking on Kazakhstan. And Kazakhstan has kind of been the team of the event so far in terms of like producing, I don't know if upsets, given Sakari's form, maybe it's not a big upset. Spain obviously didn't really bring their best team, given it was Carreño Busta and Buzas Maneiro in the singles. But still, Kazakhstan is kind of like the odd team out so far. But they're strong, and the combination of Rybakina Shevchenko in the one mixed match that they played, they were actually quite good. So it does not have to be an easy one, and probably the biggest blockbuster, of course, we have coming up is Rybakina against Swiatek.
Yeah, and then once again, there's kind of pressure on Hurkacz to get the first win and try to put Poland up 1-0 because that's really the match where he's like, okay, there's one clear favorite. Whereas, if it comes down to Rybakina Swiatek, I mean, if it comes down to the mix, then like you said, the Kazakhs have a pretty strong pair there as well, and they can easily match up toe to toe with Iga and Hubi. But yeah, the main match I think we have to talk about is Rybakina Iga because that's really where all the interest is. And the last time they played was in Stuttgart, 3-setter there, and that was one of Rybakina's best matches in 2024, and also Swiatek had one of her best matches in Doha in the final, coming back to win there. But two very competitive matches, and you kind of you're coming into it with a little bit of caution for Iga because of the injury that she had, and so we'll see if that's really going to play that much of a factor. Personally, I don't think it's super serious, and she should be able to recover based on what I saw. But you never know there in terms of the actual X's and O's. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that this head-to-head so far has been kind of going like you would expect, as in like the faster courts, Rybakina is winning, the slower courts is Iga. Of course, there's been some, moments when it didn't really work out that way, like the Indian Wells match where Rybakina was like, peaking for the entire event and Iga had that rib injury. Also, there was, of course, Rome, but that one, Swiatek was up in, just basically had to retire. What is the injury, Ghosty? I mean, I don't know if I would go as far as to call it an injury, but basically she had a thigh problem that was clearly becoming a thing in the third set. She got it taped during an off-court MTO because it was just too far. I mean, it was in that area where they basically couldn't do it on the court anymore. And she came back with some bandage. I think her movement looked okay-ish, but probably a little hampered. You could see that she's very, at least on serve, she was like very trigger happy, including that breakpoint that Vansh was talking about earlier. A day of rest could do her just wonders in terms of that. But basically, I think without that day of rest, Rybakina would have been pretty favored. But because she gets that now, yeah, I mean, it looks quite fine. I would say that definitely it's not like she's going to be just completely out of it. I think though, if she lost to Boulter today, it's very possible that she wouldn't have played the mixed anyway. Like that's kind of how it looked. 3 hours almost on the clock when they ended that match. And I mean, if Katie was going to come back, then it was going to be over 3 hours. So I think it's likely that even if the mixed actually meant something today, both Boulter and Swiatek would have been off. But yeah, I mean, for me, it's clear that Rybakina is like the slightest of favorites just based on the conditions. But it would be a fantastic match for Iga to kind of show that, well, she's done some work in terms of improving that situation already, responding to that high pace, flat pace coming at her forehand. I think so far in this event, yeah, we kind of saw that against Boulter. Okay, she was in trouble, but she was able to kind of grind it out when needed. And of course, the second set, she just never really let go of that intensity that Katie did. I think, Nurlan sees Rybakina dominating Iga in this particular match. Not too surprised, because that's what Nurlan always says. But yeah, I mean, to me, it's not Australia 2023 when I was just like screaming from the rooftops that I mean, Rybakina has like 100% chance to win the match. I think it's much closer than this. But certainly the slicker, the faster the conditions have been in the rivalry, it's clear that this is the moment that can actually, I mean, that Rybakina can definitely trouble Swiatek. Of course, she leads the head-to-head, and she's been very good so far too. Like Rybakina has a bit of a point to prove this season after that second half of 2024 didn't really work out, and after, well, for a half a season she was fantastic but didn't get a slam, and Arina and Iga did. So I think that you can kind of see that, yeah, she's pretty eager to perform well.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to ask you was, all these matches that Iga's been able to win now in, over 2 hours and 3 setters, going back to the Billie Jean King Cup, and I guess maybe even at the WTA finals, the Krejcikova win, and then the 3 wins at the BJK Cup, and then today. So we're seeing more of, we're seeing her kind of pull through in more of these tighter matches and grit these wins out. So kind of responding to adversity a little bit better against, I wouldn't say like easy competition, right? I mean, Badosa, Mahova, Mashkova, like players like this. I'm including Mahova as well because, like I said, almost 2 hours in the scoreline, I think is a little misleading. But yeah, she's playing a lot of long matches and coming through most of them, which I think is a positive thing.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think this whole thing has been kind of like blown out of proportion as well. Like that used to be an issue in like 2023, when literally she would either dominate or just get dominated, and there's like nothing in between. 2022 probably as well for the most part. And then in 2024, I think it was already very different. What was it, like her deciding set record last year? 13-3 or something like that?
Yeah.
I mean,
exactly.
that kind of says it all, right? It's just not really an issue anymore, I think. And especially specifically in these competitions like Beijing King Cup, United Cup, she's always giving like 200% engagement. Even if the quality won't be there, you just know that she's going to like fight to the death, basically. And, she's a true leader of the Polish team. I mean, so far, of course, she's unbeaten in the competition here. Of course, she lost last year the mix to Germany, and she also lost in 2023. She lost one singles match to Pegula when they were switching from Brisbane to Sydney. But I mean, she's been a true leader for Team Poland, with Hurkacz kind of, still trying to find his footing. That's been especially important. And yeah, I mean, I don't know what I expect from her in terms of winning or losing against Rybakina, but I know she's like gonna be desperate to win this match for many reasons. But one of them being that, yeah, she just excels for the team, and getting these wins, all these long matches that you mentioned, it's probably a little easier in that setting. But I think we might see it obviously on the tour as well. Even last year, Australia, she beat Daniel Collins in a similar scenario. Swarna wants to see a Coco Iga final. That's, of course, very much on the cards here if Poland and the United States, so the pre-tournament favorites, make it there. No, anything more to add about Kazakhstan, Poland? I think that Ghosty mentioned the coach situation. Like, personally, I don't really want to touch on that because I feel like we're still talking about just like conjecture, and we don't really know what the Stefano Vukov situation is, and whether he was actually, whether that whole like ban thing, and whether that abuse that people talk about, there's been no indication from Rybakina that was ever the case. So for people to now like come out and say that this is so wrong that he's going to be joining the team, we just don't know. So I'm not really willing to comment anymore, to be honest.
Yeah, we do know that Ivan Nisevic will be there. So there's, Ivan Nisevic and then Vukov, and yeah, I mean there was that post I think from Sophia something, I forget her last name.
Yeah,
that was like
Tartakova, I think.
on Twitter, US Open, but yeah, like you said, there really isn't anything definite that we can really talk about with that. So we'll just have to monitor and see if how much that is. But I think all of that is just noise at this point. So yeah, we can move on from that. But I think Sofia Berg, no. Oh my gosh, do another in the chat. Yeah,
Tartakova.
Yeah.
Yes, Ghosty. If Kazakhstan and the US play in the final, it would be Fritz Shevchenko, which is actually a very good matchup for Sasha, and he's already beaten Taylor. So quite interesting, I think. There's a question for Vanj that I think we have to answer. Where is Ayeni going to finish in the rankings on yet?
I mean, he did this year in the top 500, and in 2023, I think, was he ranked like somewhere in the 300s? I don't remember exactly what, but
maybe
closer to 400, closer to 400 than 300, I would think.
Definitely wasn't close to 300. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's try for a top 300 and see how it goes.
It would be a big achievement, I think. Yeah, like finishing the top 300 would be a very good achievement already. With that sort of wild play style. I don't know if we can actually say also that he finished this year in the top 500. I mean, depending when you look at in terms of the year-end rankings, I think he only got there after that most recent ITF title. But anyway, that's not really the most important thing right now. In terms of the United Cup, I think we pretty much covered it already. We've got Czechia and Italy, of course, coming up today, or depending on where you are in the world, maybe it's tomorrow, but who cares? That's not the most important thing right now either. In the title, we also have Novak Djokovic getting to a 20-0 head-to-head record against Gael Monfils. Of course, this was already the record, so it's not like he's just extending basically what he already had. But yeah, when was the last time you were excited for a Djokovic-Monfils match?
Probably Dubai 2020, right?
But were you excited beforehand, or did you get excited during the match?
Probably more during, but I think I was more hopeful going in that it would be more competitive. Maybe because of all the form that Gael had, and kind of he was showing that new aggressive tennis, coming to the net a ton, like just showing some more, different ways of winning points offensively. So I thought, okay, against Novak, it would be interesting to see it this time when he basically could just swing freely. But then that didn't, then he had those 3 match points. There've been like maybe 3 or 4 close matches that they've had, but apart from that, it's been really dire for Gael. And I was not expecting it to be close coming in. Like 3-3, if you had told me that before, I would have been like, yeah, that's probably what it's going to be. So not sure if there's too much to add, but Djokovic looks good so far.
Sworna, yes, but would you beat Novak Djokovic in a 2004 ITF match? Because, of course, guys, it's my duty. I have to note, it's only a tour level head-to-head. In 2004, Gael Monfils defeated Novak Djokovic in an ITF in Italy. So technically, he has a win over him. I don't know why he doesn't bring it up. Maybe he's just like, doesn't want to sound too pathetic. I kind of understand that. But yeah, I mean, I wasn't really going to be like super excited for this one. I think maybe the last time I was US Open 2016. I was just like so enjoying the potential of this match, but then it never really materialized, and it was actually super weird as well. Like Gael started he was 0-5 down and just started clowning, and that actually ended up giving him games. Like that was actually how he could win games, just junk balling Novak. But yeah, I think it's still a better matchup than Nadal Gasquet though. That's 18-0 in the 2-level head-to-head. There's also a challenger win for Richard, but that was via retirement, so it's a little less legitimate, I would say, than the one that Monfils has. When it comes to Brisbane, we're going to have the quarterfinals, of course. Thompson and Dimitrov are meeting in a rematch of last year's semi, so that's pretty exciting, I think. And also Petri Perikard Menchik. That's actually a match I saw live a year ago in Poznan, or a year and something ago. and it ended on a very controversial line call. So, well, I don't know if it's going to happen again, but still, two young talents coming up against each other.
Yeah, that one is really exciting in terms of potential. Yeah, I mean, Petchy Pericard has just been serving. I mean, we know he can serve really well, but then I've also been kind of impressed. Like, he can move, he can cover the net, he can really take his chances on the return. And like you said, the last time he played Menchik, was it like 7-6 in the third, and were there like a bunch of match points saved? I remember it being really good. So if it's anything like that, yeah, I expect it to be pretty razor tight.
Which one do you mean? The one that was very good?
Yeah, GMP and Menchik, they played
yeah. Too much points saved. Yeah, it was 13-11 in the first set tiebreak.
Yeah. So I'm kind of expecting something similar-ish. Like I do actually think GMP is playing that well right now, and I would actually love to see GMP versus Djokovic in the semis. I would love to see that.
Have I been paying attention to Ashlyn Kruger? I mean, I know she's won 3 matches and lost 1 set, I think, only to Uchima, maybe beat Kalinskaya, but I haven't really watched any of it this week. But, the season that she had last year, I think that's kind of the worst she can do. I think she's definitely like getting either stronger from there or just, not having a weaker season than 24. When it comes to Petchy Pericard, also, yeah, you mentioned Djokovic. It's not relevant for this match against Menchik, but 6-1 against the top 20, which is pretty insane. I know this is 6-0 against players ranked between 14 and 19, but also, just 1 against the top 10, and that one he actually lost, but that was Carlos Alcaraz, so it's also like a special kind of top 10. I mean, it's a statistical quirk that won't last forever. It's kind of like that Daniel Altmaier top 10 record, or of course the recent efforts of Thiago Monteiro. But for now, I mean, yeah, it's definitely a ridiculous stat that the Frenchman has been able to gather over the last year or so.
Yeah. And in terms of the best servers on tour, you'd have to put him right at the top.
I don't think there's a better one right now, yeah.
I don't think there's anyone close.
Taylor Fritz topped the list, right? Last year for aces on the ATP Tour.
Oh, okay, yeah. I guess
I think that this year he doesn't really stand a chance. If he plays like 20 more matches than GMP is gonna have more. It's pretty clear, I think.
Yeah. No, Fritz is a very good server, but he's not in that same. He's not.
He just kind of got there because Kyrgios is out, Opelka is out, Petchy Pericard was just getting there, so he didn't play that many matches yet. I think Petchy Pericard has about 35 main tour matches right now, so probably about 30 last year, whereas Taylor played like 80, 70. So yeah, that was a big difference, probably a bigger one than here. Isner have a winning record versus Novak? I mean, no, definitely not.
No, definitely not.
Like what, 3-9? No, maybe I'm.
I think he has 2 wins, right? But like 2012
Cincinnati,
and then Cincinnati the next year, yeah, 2013.
And what was the first one? The Indian was, yeah. Who is the serve bot that does? Well, Karlovic has a winning record, but I am offended by you calling him a serve bot. However, Karlovic, yes. Karlovic, ATP is going to tell you 2-1. However, it's 3-1 because for some reason the Madrid ATP 1000 qualifying or something like that isn't included. But yeah, 3-1 for Dr. Ivo against Novak. And of course, we have Dr. Vansh on the channel here. So we have 2 doctors, sort of.
There you go.
Anyway, yeah, that's probably Brisbane more or less covered. We also have Hong Kong, where one of the favorites of Vansh, so Cam Nori, is playing, and he's coming up against Kei Nishikori, who just secured his top 100 return. We also have Marozsan against Shang, which some of you might remember, but if not, I'm going to remind you that when Fabi beat Carlos Alcaraz in Rome, that famous win that some called the upset of the century, of course, everybody expected him to qualify for Roland Garros. And you know who stopped him? Yuncheng Shang. So that's some good backstory there. And also Arthur Fils coming up against Miller, a matchup where we just expect him to cruise. But I think he's probably lost to Miller already. I don't remember where, but it could happen. So yeah, any of these Hong Kong quarterfinals that particularly stick out to you?
Yeah, you're right. I'd forgotten about that one where Muller beat Fils. I think it might have been Rome. Yeah, I think Rome.
Sounds right. Yeah, sounds right.
Like that. Right. So that one. That one sort of piqued my interest just because of that. I would expect Feast to come through that, but obviously, I mean, Nishikori against Nori. Those are two players who are playing really good right now. I'll start with Nishikori, the win over Hachanov, and coming back from set and a breakdown, just like really, really good ball striking. And he looks healthy right now. Fingers crossed. So if he can stay healthy for another 2 or 3 months, is he already in the top 100? I feel like he's very close, if not already there, right?
Who?
Okay.
I just said that he secured his top 100 return.
Oh, okay, yeah. You
with the
mentioned
second
this
round
already.
win.
Yeah. So, yeah, and then Cam looks like he had a very good off season in terms of, the win over Tian impressed me coming back from a breakdown in the second set. He had that little bit of a blip towards the end of the second set against Sonego, but then the third set he was outsmarting him again and just, I think, hitting a much bigger ball going down the line often, like just playing very confident, like he wasn't, towards the end of last year coming back from the injury. He just looks like he's had like proper time now to kind of rebuild. So yeah, very curious to see which way that's going to go.
Yeah, by the way, getting a tattoo would be like the last thing I would ever do. I don't know, for some reason, just like permanent damage to my body is yeah, I don't know. I mean, if someone wants to, go ahead, but not for me really. Actually, I could get something like funny on my ankle or something like that, so like where people wouldn't see. But if it's super funny, so like I don't know, we go out drinking and we just decide, okay, let's get tattoos of whatever. I could do that, but not really in a spot where it would be visible. Anyway, let's talk about the WTA action too. So we've got Auckland, and there, I mean, I don't want to call John Silk a clown, but he said that Amanda Anisimova was going to beat Alicia Parks in 2 sets. Well, it's Alicia Parks who's in the quarterfinals. By the way, with a new coach that I wasn't aware of. But that kind of makes sense in terms of like their game styles. And of course, Naomi Osaka is also one of the big stories there in Auckland. We have also, I think, probably the best match out of the quarterfinal set between Madison Keys and Clara Towson.
Oh yeah. Wait, who is the new coach?
Jeremy Chardy.
Oh really? For Alicia Parks?
That's what I read today.
Wow. Okay, that's an interesting pairing. I didn't know that. But no, I mean Clara Towson had that win over Cannon, which was just like one of those matches that was just pretty crazy, pretty roller coaster. I think Cannon was up like a set in 2 breaks actually, and he couldn't get the job done. But they had a couple of these matches like this last year that just could have gone either way. I think when Cannon made the final of Tokyo, there was another kind of similar match against Towson, and I think Towson is back in the top 50 now, and she's like kind of, tailed off the last couple of years, but that was mostly injury related. She had a pretty bad back problem, from what I remember. So now she's kind of back in the mix, which is nice. Keys look really good so far, and she's actually So I would make her the favorite against Towson, but I expect that one to be pretty close, just because Towson is playing pretty well. She's in form right now, but I think Keys probably a little more dynamic. So and I think she's won this tournament before, at least once. So she tends to do well in these Australian tune-ups. Right now, I'd probably make her the favorite for the title, but of course, there's a lot of other good players.
Well, in terms of the Chardy Parks thing, I have confirmed that he was there with her in Angers. Is he there in Auckland? I don't know, but he was definitely there with her in Angers. Maybe I'll try to catch her match today. Oh, it's against Katie Volinets, so Nurlan's favorite. Well, maybe I won't watch it then.
Yeah, that's exactly the kind of opponent that Parks usually struggles against.
Or blasts her off the court. Like, I think it's just like, 50-50. And it's tough to say actually what's going to happen, I think, like for the most part in these encounters. But yeah, of course, Towson, I fully agree that it's just like only injuries. She's still an absolutely elite talent. It's just that I don't know if I ever see her having a fully healthy season. Seems like the body is like so destroyed by now, even already. I think when she played Warsaw like 2 years ago, I just saw someone from like from long distance. I see a player and I'm like, I don't know who that is, from like 100 meters. But then I saw that her leg was just like bandaged to an extent that I've never seen. And I'm thinking, okay, Clara Towson. And it was. That's kind of like a sub story for you here, guys. Anyway, also Naomi Osaka. Let's talk about her in Auckland. She is facing Hailey Baptiste. I think so far hasn't really been tested. Who was it? Lina Glushko and Julia Grabher, maybe. So it certainly feels like this is something that Naomi should be coming through easily. She has been. Of course, there were some recent comments made about her contemplating retirement after last season. She had these 2 second-round defeats at a slam, which kind of felt like wins. But in the long run, of course, they're not really wins. You're not getting through. You're not getting points. And you're not getting closer to your best. But, yes, it just seems like it's going to be very important right now for Naomi to keep winning and to kind of get results as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I would say she should be making at least the final here this week. And then, final with a really tight match against Keys or winning the title. Like, that's kind of my expectation at this point for Naomi, which, isn't just like, based on what I've seen so far in the players left, like she should be getting there.
Yeah, I think that I haven't rewatched her this week because again the matches just kind of felt like okay, she's probably going to get through that, and we're not going to learn all that much. I'm probably planning to nap during her quarterfinal today because most of the action that interests me starts at about 5 a.m. my time, and this is going to be much earlier. But yeah, if she gets to the semis, plays someone like Keys, Towson, Parks, I'm going to be all over that, obviously. And then there's also the WTA version of the event in Brisbane. Of course, that's going right along with the men's event. And honestly, considering the strength of the field, so like the fact that we had 16 seeds, all of them so high ranked, the quarterfinal lineup is quite unexpected. We have only Sabalenka and Andreeva out of these 16 seeds making it to the quarterfinals. And it's probably Mirra who's in a more interesting matchup with Ons Jabeur, who's just coming back, of course, after an injury. We already established during our most recent stream that was that Ons's last match of 2024 was one that we did the watch along on with Vanch. And of course, Mirra also crashed her at the Australian Open, but Ons was definitely not fit there. And Sabalenka Buskova, I guess, carries some intrigue too, based on what happened when they played in Washington.
Yeah, based on the Washington one, carries a little bit of intrigue. Sabalenka so far has looked kind of so-so in the first sets, the last couple of matches, especially against Putintseva, where she was actually in some trouble in the first set. Putintseva had like a couple. I think she started forward at 5-4. She was 2 points away, like 2-3 times. Never got to set point. I think she was up a mini break, maybe in the tie break, but then it was kind of over pretty quickly after that. In the sense when Sabalenka got up an early break in the second, you never felt like she was gonna let Putintseva back in. So Bushkova is kind of similar in that sense. She can kind of put balls in awkward places, make Arena kind of play more of that all court tennis that she's been doing pretty well since Rome last year against Svitolina with the drop shots. Where it's funny how actually now I really consider that match so important for Sabalenka's career. That match against Svitolina in Rome, where like her back was hurting, and then she was like, okay, let me actually hit a bunch of drop shots. And ever since then, she's kind of been pretty confident with that. So it's just something I've observed with Sabalenka, but I think that's kind of made her more complete overall. But I expect her to get through that. I'm very interested in Jabeur against Andreeva. I don't expect it to be 0-2 for Mirra like it was at the Australian Open, where like Ons was clearly hurt, and Ons looks much healthier this time of the year than she has in the last like 2 years. Or in the last 2 seasons, and this time her season's kind of started in Charleston for the most part, where you're kind of like, okay, now she's fully healthy. But I feel like she's the time that she had off last year, post Toronto, I think she seems to have come out of that well. Already gotten 3 wins, so regardless of what happens, it's kind of a positive week. But yeah, that's definitely the match that I'm most interested in. Although you have to think Andreeva's a pretty sizable favorite right now, just based on the trajectory.
Yeah, she is that way for the bookies as well. I think it's maybe a little too much in her favor, but a little. Yeah. Ghosty, what do you mean about that Mirra Andreeva's body is changing? Can you elaborate on that? I don't think I've watched a match from her yet in 2025. Honestly, I can't say much about Polina Kudermetova. Like, I think I've seen a Seoul match from her because, of course, she not a Seoul as in loan, but a Seoul as in the capital of South Korea, because of course that was the event where she reached back-to-back quarterfinals the last couple of years. Seems to be improving, but WTA below the main tour is something that I'm generally not watching. There's just not that much time. Anyway, Ashton Kruger, of course, the favorite of Nurlan, is also playing Polina Kudermetova in Brisbane. So that's kind of the big stories there. And I think we also wanted to mention a certain Canberra Challenger. Not that any of the free challengers this week are, uninteresting, but that's the one where I think a lot of people will be headed today. 5 a.m. Start time around for me in my time zone, but that also depends on the previous matches from the WTA 1 to 5 that is happening there. However, the semi-final lineup looks insane. Even Landaluce against Queen being on such a big win streak. Landaluce, of course, also such an exciting prospect. We might get a Fonseca-Landaluce rematch in the final. And I'm saying rematch because they played one of the best matches of the season in November in Lyon. However, the big one today is going to be Jacob Fernley against Joao Fonseca. So Fonseca still hasn't lost since the Next Gen Finals. He is on 8 wins in a row now. He's been absolutely unplayable, but he's coming up against the guy who won 90% of his challenger matches last year.
Yeah, and came through 7-6 in the third against Eubanks, which was also a pretty fun match. But personally, I kind of see Fonseca winning this. I just, Fernley is in really good form and he's really good, but does he kind of really have the weapons to hurt Fonseca the way he's playing right now? I question that a little bit. Maybe I'll be wrong and Fonseca, might be a little bit inconsistent in the match, but I kind of expect Fonseca to come through this. Just the way he's been looking so far. This week and also next gen finals.
Yeah, thanks Ghosty for elaborating. I will look at it. Of course, if it's detrimental to her movement at some point, that might be an issue, as that's such a big part of her game. Fonseca, I think he's a pretty solid favorite against Fernley. The only thing I'm thinking about is maybe, okay, so he's played 8 great matches in a row. He's got to have a stinker somewhere. But if it doesn't happen, he's probably better. I think people have been saying that Jake isn't playing as well as he was in 2024. I think near the end of 2024, Fernley also kind of yes, he's a Scot. He also kind of stabilized at a certain level at some point. His Stockholm performances, were they something amazing? I don't think he was truly in that insane gear anymore when, the last few tournaments of the season were happening. Of course, his win rate dropped from a 25-1 to 27-3 on the Challenger circuit. I mean, crazy. What a loser. But anyway, I think that so far what I've seen from him this week, especially against De La Vedova in the opening round. But of course, that's a weird matchup. De La Vedova is just loops every shot. So I understand that it's very different. But even yesterday against Eubanks, up until maybe the middle of set 2, he was really struggling on return. He was just maybe even getting outplayed in the longer points sometimes. Is it just me, or did Eubanks try to hit his forehand with a little more spin and actually direct play? I don't know. It didn't seem like he was going full power. But the quality of play from Jake has been a little just middle of the road. So Fonseca, if he doesn't drop that insane intensity, he will definitely be the guy to watch here, and also the guy to watch in the Australian Open qualifying coming up. As of right now, it seems pretty likely that Fonseca can just win this event, qualify for Australia, and win a few rounds there.
Yeah, that's literally what it feels like right now. Because, you said maybe he's bound to have that one match. I still think even if he does, he should be kind of good enough to navigate through it right now. But maybe, you never know. If he doesn't, it's not the end of the world. He still has qualities. But I just think it's all kind of up and up for Joao right now.
Yeah, I think if Fonseca has that poor match against someone like Fernley or someone like Landaluce, it's not guaranteed that he's gonna get through it. But let's assume he gets to Australian Open qualifying, and that stinker in the opening round comes against, I don't know, I don't want to single out anybody, but let's say Brandon Holt. Yeah, okay. He probably still wins. Or Yu Su. He probably still wins then. So I think maybe that's going to be the goal, for that stinker to happen against someone he will still beat regardless. And it feels very doable. So to me, he's kind of in that Sabo Wild boat right now, 2023 Roland Garros, when you just see that, okay, if this guy gets through the qualifying, he's gonna have wins in the main draw. And Thiago Seyboth, of course, gets Daniel Medvedev in his opener, and he still won. That's kind of where I think Fonseca is at the moment. I'm not saying if he draws Medvedev at the Australian Open, he's going to be the favorite to win. But there's a lot of players in that main draw who would be afraid of him. So I think for kind of like the sake of all of us involved and kind of for the sake of tennis, maybe even in a way going really big with the phrasing here, it would be very good if Fonseca made Australia. If he doesn't, like for him, it's not that big a deal. Like he's just going to make it, by Roland Garros or whatever to the top 100. Who cares? But in terms of just like the excitement we might get from the draw ceremony too, and just seeing where one of the unseeded players, so just like Kyrgios, right, he's also going to be someone that no one wants to have in their opening round. It's just good to have players like this, where it doesn't feel like, it's just numbers getting drawn. And it's, I don't know, again, I don't want to single out anybody, but, Novak Djokovic isn't going to be thinking, if Alexander Miller is in my first round draw, I don't know, man. But he will not like Fonseca or Kyrgios because, well, he's still probably going to beat them. But it's just, it's just much more tricky.
Yeah. I feel that. I think most people are rooting for that. And there was already a lot of intrigue about that in the US Open when he played Spizzirri in the final round of qualies. I feel like everyone was, time like stood still for like that 1 hour and everybody was tuning in. That's certainly what it felt like anyway.
Yeah, I think it was like that. Of course, it didn't really work out. Spizzirri, he's also like one of these consistent guys, gets balls back and stuff. And for that version of Fonseca, that was a little much in that encounter. Of course, there was also the potential kind of like nerves with playing a Grand Slam major for the first time. But I don't know. I mean, with the most recent performances of Fonseca, it just feels like someone like Spizzirri would be no problem for him right now. He's beaten Lerner Tien, for example, twice at the next gen finals, and that's a much improved version of Elliot Spizzirri in many ways, including being a lefty.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what else do we have to talk about? I actually don't have to run instead of what I said earlier, but it seems like we kind of reached all of the topics anyway. We also have Djokovic coming up against Opelka in Brisbane today. Do you think that's an interesting match at all, or is it just going to be kind of like a routing? I mean, Riley seems to be also like, it seems like you said Norrie had a very good off-season. It's kind of also a thing with Riley, right?
Yeah, I think it is a thing, especially even against Arnaldi. I thought when he was down a break, he was going to lose that set, but he actually broke back and ended up winning both the tie breaks. Was quite clutch in some big moments. And Opelka is kind of one of these players, like, he doesn't need a ton of time when he does come back, and he can kind of always pick up where he left off, and he showed that again so far. So yeah, do I think he's going to beat Djokovic? Probably not, but I mean, it's going to be more interesting than the one-face match, I think.
Yeah, we sort of had as you said, I mean, Newport semis, right? That was kind of the main moment when he saw, okay, Opelka is just back and he's playing very well. I think the one match that he played in 2023, Charlottesville, was also just pretty insane. Like, okay, he wasn't fit to play in the second round, but the level was very good right away. It's just that, of course, after Newport, he was actually kind of struggling last year. It didn't follow up on that first good initial run. So I guess there were some questions, which so far he's kind of answered. It would be good for him to have just like a 7-6, 6-4 loss to Novak, even, to be honest. I just don't really want it to be like a 6-2, 6-2, because that would be the result that still says, okay, so Opelka is far from his best. Yeah, they've never played. Do I think the future of Georgian tennis is bright? I cannot say anything about the juniors. I think when it comes to the guys they have on the tour, of course, the Basilashvili is on his way out. They have this like whole group that travels together, right? So Metreveli, Purtseladze, Bakshi, all of them, I mean, they won't really achieve that much in the sport. I think Saba still has a lot of untapped potential. Bakshi probably maxed out last year with that challenger he almost won in Cahreti. So the guys that I know, the guys that are on the challenger circuit, not really. But I don't know anything about the juniors in Georgia and whether there are even any good juniors in Georgia. And also, the producer suggested a Rublev look back. I won't be able to say much, but maybe you saw more of Marozsan against Rublev today. Of course, Andrei failing to defend his Hong Kong title.
Yeah, that means he's outside the top 8, right? So I guess that means.
Oh, you mean for the
maybe-
Australia seedings? Okay,
Yeah.
I wasn't thinking of that.
So actually, that was kind of an important one because I think now he's 9th in the rankings. Yeah, I think now he's number 9 in the rankings. So that means you.
I mean,
but
he can just play what? That doesn't actually mean much, right? I mean,
Yeah, 5 through 8 guy in the 4th round, I guess.
he can play a
5
5-8 guy in the 4th round, but he still
Yeah.
can't play the top 4 seeds in the 4th round.
Until the
So
quarters. So
it's
not really that different.
that meaningful, but actually, I mean, if you look at the list, I guess, you can play Daniil Medvedev or Novak Djokovic in the 4th round, whereas otherwise, if he was in the 5-8 range, he could play like Tsitsipas, who's probably not going to get there, or if he's going to get there, isn't going to be that much of a threat, or the rest is actually pretty solid. So yeah, it is a little meaningful, but given that the top 4 seeds it doesn't change anything for the fact that you won't be facing Alcaraz, Fritz, Zverev, or Sinner until the quarters. I guess it's not the biggest deal in the world for him at the moment. I'm pretty sure when Andrei Rublev lost today, he was more like, disappointed with the loss than with the fact that he wasn't gonna get a top 8 seeding. But it is
the type of player that will really that Andre will want to avoid in terms of he has that upset potential early in a tournament against a top player. He's shown that over and over. I think he's like 6-6 now against top 10 players, which is obviously an outstanding record.
All right, because he had a lot of these ATP 1000 matches. I was like, wow, he's played this many. But yeah, sure. I mean, the first 3 rounds right at the ATP 1000 level were insane. And yeah, definitely. I mean, Marozsan has just as good a chance to be the top 10 player as he's got a chance to be the top 80 guy. And that's kind of what his season last year was. It's tough to produce a big run like this, but he'll be hoping to just be a little more consistent. Is Adelaide doing 2 tournaments again this year? No, there's no space for that, Ghosty, because there's only 2 weeks before the Australian Open main draw begins. So if they wanted to, they would have to do it literally this week and then the next one. So only one event in Adelaide coming up. And I guess by now we can actually finish this. I also, by now, I actually have to go. So thank you, Vansh. And thank you to everybody in the chat. Nurlan, great questions about the future of Georgian tennis. I enjoyed it. Keen came in with the great question for Vansh about Ayeni's year-end ranking. So I think you really got it all from this little show, podcast, whatever, in terms of just all the potential, areas and all the potential levels of tennis were included.
Yeah, for sure. And I already got you laughing about San Diego 2 minutes in, so already got that.
That was good. Yeah, I enjoyed that too. Yeah, nothing in Perth this Aussie summer. I mean, there's the Hopman Cup in Perth, but I don't think Perth has ever really had an ATP WTA event unless it was like 15, 20 years ago, and I just don't remember. But since I've been watching tennis, I don't think Perth ever had a main tour event. So just the United Cup, really. And once again, thank you, Vansh. Thank you, everybody in the chat. See you guys in some other Talking Tennis content, and hit that subscribe button. Very close to 11.8K.
Yep. Thank you, everyone.
We have to wait about 5 seconds or not.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.